Friends, I welcome you to my channel. Before listening to this story, I will ask you to like and subscribe. It is not difficult for you, but it is pleasant for me. And we're starting. It was a beautiful winter day in Austin, Texas. The air temperature was 20 degrees, and a light westerly breeze was blowing. The evening looked even more spectacular. A full moon, a temperature of about 10 degrees at 8 p.m. All this corresponded to the ideal forecast. To top it all off, Florida-Georgia Line was at a concert at the Moody Center, and Henry Kahn had 2 front-row tickets to the show for him and his wife Melanie. The 33-year-old couple, who have been married for almost 5 years, were supposed to celebrate Valentine's Day a week earlier. The only problem was that it wasn't very warm in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. In fact, it was about 12 degrees cold. Snow fell on the ground 30 centimeters thick, and according to forecasts, another 20 centimeters before it comes down. What does this have to do with Henry, Melanie, and the date with Tyler Hubbard, Brian Kelly, and the rest of the team? Good question. Henry was called at the last minute to fly to Sioux Falls the day before to fix a major computer glitch at the Sanford Biomedical Center. When the problem arose, their neonatal unit was involved in a nationwide research project. Henry was the leading IT specialist in his company and rarely went on business trips, but Sanford was their third largest customer, so Henry took the first available flight out of AS on Thursday. It took him about 6 hours to sort everything out. He had booked a flight back to Austin at 6 a.m., which would take him home 10 hours before the concert. The only problem was that by 3 o'clock in the morning, snow had already fallen 30 centimeters thick on the ground, and it was still continuing. The airline's app on his mobile displayed notifications about delays, and then finally about flight cancellations. Henry was awake and looking for options. Henry was well compensated for his work, and he was worth every penny, but his boss wouldn't be happy if he booked a ticket home. However, he had just saved his company several $1,000s more than a charter would have cost, so he tried this option. By 5 in the morning, it became clear that no one would fly in the near future. The snowfall continued all day. The temperature dropped to about 15 degrees below zero. Some called it the storm of the decade. All Henry could think was, damn. Around 9 a.m., he dialed Melanie's office's fast number. Her assistant, Kim, answered after the second ring and connected him. Hi, baby. I'm so excited about tonight. What time are you going to get home? Mel, have you seen the weather in Sioux Falls? No, Henry. I knew that's where you were going, but I wasn't paying attention. What's happening? Unfortunately, there's a hell of a lot of snow. So far, 30 centimeters, and maybe there will be another 20 today before it subsides. All flights have been canceled. Oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I was so excited about tonight. I know I've been working a lot lately, and this was the perfect chance to start a romantic weekend together. Damn, sometimes I hate your job. I'm upset too, Mel, but you know I only travel 4 or 5 times a year, and only if absolutely necessary. It was a serious crisis with a large client. Like you said, we haven't been together much in the last few months, but you're the one spending the crazy hours, not me. If anything, my job allows us to lead a damn good Texas lifestyle. You're right, Henry. It's just that lately we've been apart more often than together. I know that in many ways it depends on me. I'm working hard to become a partner, which means I have to devote time to it. You have already reached the point where you can determine most of your schedule yourself and keep it within reasonable limits. I'm getting there, but it's going to be another year or so before I start controlling my work hours. I miss you and us. Me too, baby. Why don't you grab your girlfriend Sue and go have some fun? The tickets are in the front row, and trying to sell them is too much trouble. I can order a car to pick you up and take you home. Don't let my mess ruin the fun of a great show. Melanie hesitated and offered to just sell the tickets. She would have just stayed at home and watched the live broadcast of the concert. She could log into their Ticketmaster account and sell tickets without any problems. She kept talking and talking about how she wouldn't want to go if he wasn't with her. Henry resisted, urging her to go and have fun. He reminded her that she has a new pair of Tacova boots, and the stylish boots look beautiful on her. After a few minutes of arguing, she gave in. They both said, "I love you," and they hung up. 5 minutes later, Melanie found her disposable phone in the back of her large bag and pressed the speed dial button. That was her part of the conversation. Hi, how's your day going? Well, maybe I have something that can cheer you up. Henry just called and he's stuck in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Yes, he had to go there urgently on business, and a heavy snowstorm began. Can you believe he was unlucky? Yes, good luck to you. Anyway, I still have 2 tickets for tonight, but hubby will be hanging out in the Great White North. Is Diana still visiting her parents in Memphis? Great. How about we spend the evening together? I have a new denim skirt and boots that I've been wanting to try on for a long time. I'll call a taxi to your house and we'll go on. How do you like this offer? Yes, I'll order a dark taxi to make sure we have tinted windows. Giggling. Yes, let's have an all-night party after the concert. I'll see you around 7, I can't wait. Melanie worked hard and lasted until lunch so she could leave the firm by 4:30 p.m. She wanted to soak in the tub and rest for an hour before going to the concert. Before leaving the office, she called her best friend Susan O'Connor. They met in her first year at the firm and immediately found a common language. The age difference is only 1 year, and they got married just 2 weeks apart in the same year, so they had a lot in common. Hi, Susie. Baby, do me a favor. How are you, Mel? I'll be glad to help if I can. If Henry ever asks you how our evening at the Florida Georgia Line concert went tonight, your answer will be amazing. What the fuck, Mel? Are you still making love to David the asshole? Mel giggled. I just can't get rid of him. I know his fellow partners call him that because he can be a jerk, but let me tell you that there is another good reason for the nickname asshole. Sue wasn't amused. Mel, Henry is an amazing person and you guys are an amazing couple together. This is the moment when you start thinking about children and how to create a family together. You're not in college anymore, sister. Why are you spreading your legs in front of this asshole? Mel sighed. Her friend was faithful, but at the same time, she was a little more conservative in her views on marital fidelity. I know, Sue. Henry is a great guy, and I'm not going to lose him. David is wild and funny. We are both happy in our marriages. But in fact, there is just a spark between us that shakes our worlds. Mel, you really need to think carefully before you open your mouth. If you were happily married, you wouldn't mess with your boss in love affairs. What part of your marriage vows did you not understand? To give up on all the others is pretty corny. Mel began to get tired of her friend's lectures. Sue, will you cover for me or not if Henry ever asks? I will not provide any information and I will never bring up this topic. But if he asks me, I will say that I was with you. Where are we sitting? In the front row, right in the middle. Thank you, Susie, you're the best. Next weekend we will spend a day at the spa. I'm buying. So, Henry bought great tickets. Now you're using his gift to cheat on him with David, Sue thought. She said, okay, bye. Mel rushed home and began to prepare for the date. She drank a couple of glasses of her favorite Pinot Grigio, shaved her legs in a bubble bath, and then got dressed. She was wearing a snow-white lace bra so she could undo the top couple of buttons on her white blouse. Her skirt rose about 15 centimeters above her knees, showing off her slender legs. The boots were dark gray and matched her vest. They were a Christmas present from Henry. It was the first time she had worn them, but she was so excited that she did not catch the irony of fate. She looked in the mirror and was pleased with what she saw when she looked back. She thought she would turn several heads this evening, but she was only interested in one. After ordering a taxi, she drank another glass of wine. When it arrived, she mentioned one stop on the way to the concert. The driver was happy to oblige. More money in his pocket was fine with him. The car drove up to a gated community. Melanie gave him the code to enter. They drove 2 blocks and stopped at the curb. As if on cue, David Miller, Melanie's boss, rushed out of his house and jumped into the back seat, greeting his companion with an enthusiastic and passionate kiss. My God, Mel, you smell and look wonderful. I think we should skip the concert and go straight to your house. Melanie responded to his kiss by opening her mouth slightly and purring as she absorbed him into herself. Calm down, big boy. We'll have plenty of time for that later. It's going to be a great show. The taxi driver remained silent, but noticed the engagement ring and diamond on her left hand as she kissed and caressed her lover. For her part, Mel never intended to cheat on her husband. They met on a blind date, which was organized by her best friend. A mutual attraction quickly developed between them. She was sociable, friendly, and easy to communicate with. Henry was a little more reserved, but there was an inner strength in him that attracted her. He never outshone her, but she always felt safe in his presence. He was kind but firm, warm-hearted and wise beyond his years. He attended college on a scholarship, and after graduation he served in the Marine Corps for 5 years. This experience combined with his personality made him a guy that others could always rely on. This trait seemed to Mel as cool as his height of 190 centimeters with a stern, attractive appearance. Henry was skeptical of Mel's hobbies from the very beginning. He never considered himself a good match or anything special. In the Corps, he was taught that his duty was to take care of those around him. "You're in command on the front line and you're the last to retreat," they drummed into him at headquarters. This rule made an impression on him, which remained with him after his return to civilian life. Therefore, the fact that he was being chased by a beautiful woman slightly embarrassed him. The only time he felt out of place was when Mel suddenly grabbed him and kissed him passionately, or looked at him across a crowded room with a look that could only be defined like this: "I need you to figure out how to use me right now." As they grew up together, Henry's fears subsided, and Mel's confidence in them grew. They got married after an 18-month courtship that included a 4-month engagement. Thanks to his knowledge of communications and natural abilities, Henry got an excellent job at his current firm in Austin. In his 3rd year at the company, he headed his own department. In his 5th year, he became vice president of IT development and customer support. Mel graduated from law school 9 months after they got married and landed a solid entry-level position at a medium-sized firm in Austin specializing in oil and mineral rights. She was very quick-witted and attracted the attention of 3 partners of the firm: Connor, Sims, and Miller. And that's when the trouble started. David Miller was a 43-year-old married man with 2 teenage children. His wife Diana was the principal of one of the local secondary schools. Mel liked her, and she always thought they were a good match for each other as a married couple. A lot of things about her boss were a mystery to her. However, it was clear that David Miller was a tough nut to work for. He worked at least 55 hours a week as a senior partner, while his 2 colleagues worked barely 40. He expected his team to work somewhere in the range of 70 hours a week. Mel worked at the firm for the 3rd year, and finally switched to a 65-hour work week. Miller seemed pleased with her work and gave her better assignments. They began to spend more time together. We spent more time together during the day and after hours. Spend more time with the team and just the 2 of us. Soon, loneliness became much more important than communicating with the team. They began to communicate more intimately and even touched each other sometimes. They were playing with fire. They both understood that. It took 6 months before a real flame burst out of the spark. They won a major court case that generated a profit of about $2 million. David's share was supposed to be about $400,000, and Mel was supposed to receive a $45,000 bonus. A team of 6 people gathered in David's office to celebrate the event in the late afternoon. This jerk was in such a good mood that he even opened a bottle of his collectible bourbon for the occasion. An hour later, the party was coming to an end. David asked Mel to step aside for a moment. This caused a couple of grins from the most observant visitors. David escorted the last visitor out and quietly locked the door. He turned around as Mel, leaning against his desk, was already unbuttoning her blouse. David walked around the room like a man possessed. He took her in his arms and kissed her passionately. David wasn't as big or strong as Henry, but he was more determined. He was the kind of guy who understood what he wanted and achieved it. He had wanted Mel since he first started working closely with her about 2 years ago. His lust had been building up for a long time, and now it was giving way. Her arms wrapped around his neck as she returned his warm embrace. He was still holding her ass with one hand. She clung to his caressing hand, offering herself completely to him. After a minute or 2, her blouse and skirt disappeared. She was wearing only a jet black bra and matching panties with dark red trim. David broke their embrace, turned her around, and bent her over his desk. "You're amazing, Mel," David finally said, pulling away from her, letting her turn around and wrapping her in his arms. "I like these hot and dirty conversations, but I think you're just incredible, and I hope that's not all." "No, David. I don't think this is just a one-time meeting. I feel a connection with you that I don't want to resist. We're both married, and we want to keep it that way, but I hope that you and I will have moments like tonight very often. I'm glad to hear all this from you, Mel. Yes, we both want to save the marriage, but I also want to have more moments like this." "Let me show you how much I want this," Mel replied. That was 6 months ago, and now Mel and David were walking out on the concert stage hand in hand. They hid their infidelity well, but at the same time tried to meet at least twice a month. Tonight, if they were worried about being seen, they didn't show it. They weren't overly attached to each other, but even an outsider could tell that it was a date between 2 people who were attracted to each other. Back in Sioux Falls, a frustrated Henry decided to watch the concert live. "If I can't be with her, then maybe I can see her when they show the crowd," he thought to himself. After the warm-up, the FGL band burst onto the stage with a bang, performing 4 fast and loud songs. Until the 5th song, which finally became slow, the cameramen didn't work too hard looking at the audience. When the camera started filming couples in the hall, the love song Cruise sounded. Henry almost ran to the bathroom when the song started playing, but remembered that it was Mel's favorite song, and stayed. 30 seconds later, his world collapsed and his marriage fell apart. The camera paused on a couple in the front row, right where Henry was buying tickets. A man and a woman hugged, danced slowly, and kissed passionately, clearly not noticing that they were on the big screen. He recognized Mel unmistakably in her new boots that Henry had given her last Christmas, and although he didn't know him very well, there was no doubt that it was David Miller who hugged and passionately kissed his wife. Henry sank to the floor, completely speechless. The pain of betrayal hit him like a punch in the gut. He was stunned. He was dizzy and had difficulty breathing. The camera moved to the other 3 couples, but then returned to Mel and David. This time, Mel broke off the kiss, looked up and saw them on the screen. The look of panic on her face was impossible to hide. She buried her face in David's chest, pulling his head towards her so that he wouldn't look up. For 15 minutes, Henry sat on the floor, tears streaming from his eyes. He was muttering something like, "Why, Mel?" He was just angrily exclaiming, "Fuck you, Mel, and of course I'm going to use you, David Miller." When he began to regain his composure, he realized that he had to move and act quickly. He was taught in the Corps that if you sit still and do nothing, you will die. If you move and take the fight to the enemy, you have a chance. He started to move. Henry called his good friend and lawyer Michael Lipscomb. Michael was a little surprised by the call at 9:30 p.m. on Friday night, but was even more surprised to hear this topic. He apologized to Henry and asked him a couple of times, asking if Henry was sure it was Mel, making sure he told Henry to hang up, but to answer the call that was supposed to arrive within the next 5 minutes. 3 minutes later, the phone rang. He didn't recognize the number, but it was Austin's area, code 512. "Hello, this is Henry Kahn." "Hello, Mr. Kahn, this is Erica Hamilton, Michael's lawyer and good friend." "Hello, Mrs. Hamilton, thank you for calling me." "Call me Erica and I'll call you Henry," Erica replied. Henry was about to say something, but she continued. "I'm sorry to be so harsh with you, Henry, but time is of the essence. Your wife is at a concert with another man, and you witnessed their intimacy on live TV, right?" "Yes." "Good. Where were they sitting and what were they wearing, as far as you can tell?" Henry answered as quickly and concisely as possible. "When we hang up, send me the latest and best photo of your wife that you have. While we're talking, I have a private detective on his way to the concert. He will be there in 10 minutes and, if necessary, will spend the whole evening and the rest of the weekend with them. We need to collect as much evidence as possible and as quickly as possible." "Okay, thanks." "Henry, can you think of an excuse to stay in Sioux Falls for a couple more days? I would like our evidence to be irrefutable, but just one night at a concert doesn't prove that. If you can stay late because of the snow or do some more work for your client, we will have a better chance of catching him with his pants down. Please forgive me for being blunt." "Yes, I can arrange that," Henry replied. "Okay, Henry, send me the photo as soon as possible and wait for my call. I'll call you back no later than noon tomorrow and give you the latest news. Call your wife in the morning at a time convenient for you and tell her that you're late at least until Monday evening. I suppose your employer won't mind?" "Yes, I am a senior vice president, so I have a flexible schedule. I could still work with the client on Monday." "Great. I'm sorry, but I have to run. We'll talk tomorrow." Henry was grateful for the conversation and quick action. He was still dizzy and had no idea what the end result would be, but it was clear that this woman was good. He hardly slept that night and, by the way, never listened to FGL again. By 5:30 a.m., Henry had stopped trying to sleep. He got up and looked out into the street. The snowfall had become weaker, but it was still falling. He turned on the local radio station. A total of 55 centimeters of snow has fallen in the last 36 hours. This is a real record for Sioux Falls. Obviously, nothing special will happen until the end of the day or even the next. Henry started taking notes. Cheating was a common thing for her. Whether it was the first time or the 100th time, it didn't matter. He would not tolerate a breach of trust between close relatives. As if cheating wasn't terrible enough, the contempt they both showed for him was above all. They danced a slow dance and kissed in a very public place in his city. Even if only 1 or 2 acquaintances saw them, the rumors would spread. "Have you heard that Melanie Kahn is cuckolding her husband with her boss?" He would never put up with this shit. He analyzed his actions as her husband over the past 5 years. He had always been faithful to her, but it wasn't like women were banging on his door. He rarely looked at another woman. He was head over heels in love with Mel, which meant that he was absolutely faithful to her. They quarreled from time to time, but he was a good husband to her. Caring, friendly, protective, but always respecting her as an equal partner. No, he didn't deserve to be treated so disdainfully. He has compiled a detailed list of assets and liabilities. He made a very short list of people he needed to call, including his boss, his father, and 2 buddies from the Corps. He made a list of next steps in anticipation of talking to Erica. It was only 7 a.m., so he pulled on sweatpants, went to the hotel's fitness room, and worked out hard until 9. After taking a shower and having breakfast, he picked up the phone. There were 2 messages from Mel asking how he was doing and saying how much she missed him. She mentioned that the concert went well, and Sue joined her. Another sign of disrespect. He decided to check something out. Maybe he should have waited for his lawyer to check it out. But he was, after all, a Marine. Inaction in a crisis did not seem like a good option to him. The phone rang twice before it was answered. "Hi, Henry," Sue said. "I heard you were stuck in Sioux Falls." "I saw the weather map. She looks terrible." "Hi, Sue. Yes, it's white outside. Texas hasn't had this much snow in 100 years, much less in a day. I will be glad to return home." "What can I do for you, Henry?" Sue sounded nervous. "Look, Sue, I'm just curious. How did you like last night's concert? I liked the opening song, 'This Is How We Roll.' I watched it live from my hotel room." "Yes, Henry, it was a great show. I know Mel had fun, but I really missed you." "Thanks for saying that, Sue. Can I ask you one more quick question before I let you go?" "Of course." "I know you're a big fan of FGL, so I'm wondering how the hell could you confuse 'This Is How We Roll' with 'Up Down,' the song they opened last night with? How is that possible, Sue?" There was silence on the other end of the line, and Henry continued. "Sue, I know you're Mel's friend, but I also considered you a friend, just like Jim," her husband. "But now it looks like you've taken sides and are ready to give up our friendship so she can make love to her boss. I'm not sure what I did to you and Jim that I deserved such disrespect, but your betrayal hurts me very deeply." A huge lump rose in Sue's throat and tears welled up in her eyes. It dawned on her that she had done the wrong thing by covering up the chalk. No friend would ever ask someone they care about to help them be dishonest and hurt others. "I'm so sorry, Henry," she replied, almost in a whisper. "How long has this been going on, Sue? How long has David Miller been using my wife?" "About 6 months, Henry." Henry was ready for something like this, but when he heard it for the first time, he was confused. He had to put in a lot of effort to keep his composure. "Sue, does Jim know that you're lying for Mel and helping her break her wedding vows to cheat on me?" Sue gasped. "Oh no, Henry. Jim doesn't know anything about it. He would be depressed and completely ashamed to learn about my role." "All right, Sue. For now, I'm not going to tell Jim about the role you played. Everything will be clarified soon, and I'm sure he will have questions that you will need to answer. Jim is a good man, so my advice to you is to admit everything when the time comes. In the meantime, if I find out that you've said a word about this conversation with Mel, I'll call Jim myself and make damn sure he understands in no uncertain terms what role you played in helping Mel accuse me of disrespect and ruining our marriage." Sue was crying now. "No, Henry, I won't tell Mel anything. I won't even be answering messages or phone calls over the weekend. I'll find a way to avoid talking to her. I'm really, really sorry, and I'm ashamed, Henry." Henry hung up without saying goodbye. On the other end of the line, Sue began to realize the depth of her stupidity in the name of friendship. She knew she would have to talk to Jim as soon as possible. It would probably be best right now. Then Henry called Mel. She sounded sleepy, but she played the role of a loving wife perfectly. She pouted a little when she found out that he would not be home until Monday evening at the earliest. He and Sue had fun, but it was different without him. She didn't have much planned for the day. To run some errands, to clean up the house. Nothing special. She promised that she would cook something special when her hubby returned home. She ended the conversation with a polite, "I love you." Henry replied, "Goodbye." She thought it was weird, but then David started caressing her, that it was driving her crazy, so she didn't think about it anymore. At 11:58 a.m., Henry's phone rang. It was Erica. She gave him the latest news very briefly, and then said she would call back around 7 p.m. with a detailed report. She called at exactly 7 p.m. in general, It all came down to the following. 1. The shooting was very, very good. A private detective came to the concert and took some more pictures. Mel was scared by the cameras for a while, but by the end of the concert, they were hugging and kissing again. 2. They returned to Henry and Mel's house. The private investigator foresaw this and put recording equipment in several rooms. They spent the night making wild love in the master bedroom. 3. Later in the kitchen, they had a casual but frank conversation about what their relationship had been like from the very beginning. They frankly mentioned several antics in the walls of the law office. They also discussed how to keep it a secret. 4. They went out for lunch and then returned to the canny bedroom for the afternoon and evening. 5. The private investigator will continue to monitor and record, but Erica assumed that everything would be about the same. Then she wanted to know what was on Henry's mind. He spent the whole day thinking and taking notes. He shared his thoughts with his lawyer. She despised me in public and in private for 6 months. Our marriage is over, he began. She should feel the humiliation she has brought down on me in the eyes of her friends and family. The truth about her actions must come out. There is no reason to exaggerate. The facts speak for themselves, but no nonsense about irreconcilable differences. I want her to be served at work as soon as possible. I want his wife to know when I'm serving Mel, and maybe she can coordinate the work and serve her husband at the same time. The same goes for David. I want his wife to have everything we have on him. I hope and pray that she gets the better of him in the divorce. I also hope that his partners have more moral standards than he does, and they will force him to leave the practice. Perhaps if we threaten to sue the firm because they repeatedly made love in the office, we could motivate them in this direction. I don't want to stay in this house. I need to sell it. There are too many memories. To be honest, I don't even know if I'm going to stay in Texas. However, I don't want her to live there either. Hopefully, when we sell, we can split the shares 50-50. I also want to protect all my assets. I don't mind spending my money on paying for cars or other small debts, but I'm pretty sure I don't want her to get alimony from me. She had just received a large bonus and the amount was already in the 6 figures. Erica asked a few clarifying questions. She told Henry that given his ability to earn well, she would most likely receive some kind of alimony. However, if the law firm had a moral clause, they could clearly prove that her infidelity ruined the marriage. It might help. Henry will stay in Sioux Falls or return to Austin, hiding until Tuesday afternoon. The chalk will be served in the middle of the day. Erica will try to track down Mrs. Miller before that and find out if she wants to join in the fun. Henry noticed that Mel no longer called him on Saturday or early Sunday evening. He and that jerk must have had a great time. He knew he had to call her, otherwise she might get suspicious. He called around 9. Hi, you. I was just thinking about you and realized that we haven't talked since yesterday. I hope you're still going home tomorrow. I can't wait to see you. I've missed you so much. I'm sorry, Mel, but it's Tuesday. I have business at O'Hare Airport, so I'll be back home around 3 o'clock in the afternoon so we can plan dinner together. Okay, she replied, disappointed. But the next time I meet with James, CEO and Henry's boss, I'll tell him, no more winter trips. He ruined an absolutely wonderful weekend that we were supposed to enjoy together. You'll tell him when you want to, when you see him again, Henry said, almost chuckling at the thought. He thought to himself, what a fucking heartless, evil bitch you've become, Mel. They talked for another minute or two, and before hanging up, Mel said, Henry, I love you so much. You know that, right? You know how much I love you. Yes, Mel, Henry replied, holding back tears. I know exactly how much you love me. And with that, he hung up the phone. He just couldn't afford to humiliate her, even if he let her know what was happening to her, and he knew what was happening to her. She'll never humiliate me again, he thought, dialing his boss James's number to keep him informed. On Tuesday at 3 o'clock sharp, Henry was sitting at the kitchen table. He wasn't sure when Mel would be coming home. He learned from Erica that everything was going on as usual. She was supposed to be served somewhere between 2 and 4. Apparently, Mrs. Miller had already forgiven this jerk for 2 previous affairs with women like Mel. She was in no mood to forgive the third, and was happy to hire Erica to represent her interests. Both Henry Kahn and Diana Miller were named plaintiffs in a civil lawsuit against Connor, Sims, and Miller. Erica reminded both of them that she didn't think it would lead to anything. But there were rumors that although Connor and Sims weren't necessarily choir boys, they weren't the type to put up with a lack of morality that hurt their business. At 3:15 p.m., Erica called Henry to let him know that the job was done. While they were briefly discussing the next steps, Henry's phone was bursting with messages and calls from Mel. In order, the messages read, "What the hell is this? How dare you humiliate me in my workplace? Answer me, you idiot. You better be home when I get there. I will never forgive you for this." Henry has only been in combat twice. His job in the communications service was to provide combat support. But every Marine is trained to be a marksman, and twice in Iraq he got into a firefight. Neither lasted long, and his captain, who never praised anyone, took the young lieutenant aside and told him that for a beginner he was doing well. Henry's combat experience helped him stay calm and determined before the fight that was about to break out in his kitchen. Henry, where the hell have you been?" Mel shouted, emerging from the side door of the driveway. Henry sat silently at the table. Mel came around the corner with a folder in her hands and violently threw it on the table. "You bastard! Did you file my divorce papers at work? How could you do that? How could you be so cruel? Do you realize how humiliating that was?" Then her tone softened a little. "Why, Henry? Why would you file for divorce? We love each other, we have a great marriage and a great future. What are you thinking about? Talk to me." Henry remained calm. He realized that this was the first time he had seen Mel since he had learned of the terrible discovery last Friday night. Her eyes seemed sunken and swollen. She was nervous. He noticed that she had opened the divorce application but did not seem to have looked through the documents. "Sit down, Mel, and we'll talk about it." "Don't ask me to sit down, you bastard. Who do you think you are? Are you making love to some girl on the side? I swear I'll cut off your balls if that's the case." She loomed over him. "That's enough," Henry thought to himself. He stood up and loomed over her. Looking down from above with a calm but gloomy expression, he said again in a voice that demanded attention, "Sit down, Mel. Right now." She sat down. "Mel, have you even looked at the file attached to the divorce application?" She shook her head from side to side but didn't reach for the file. "Well, let's see what caused my world to collapse around me last Friday night. First of all, here's a picture of you with David Asshole at the concert. No, it's not Sue because you lied to me, but your boss. It's a loving hug and a passionate kiss that you both enjoy." Mel pushed away from the table as if the painting was a rattlesnake ready to throw. "David, it's not—" "Shh! Hush, Mel, it's my time to talk. You'll have another chance. The next item is a flash drive. I'm not going to put it in and play it. You can do it on your laptop later. But this is a recording of you and this jerk making love in our bed last Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday night, and Sunday morning. It also includes conversations that took place right here at this table, in our house, between you and this jerk, discussing past adventures and how to keep Mrs. Diana Miller and me in the dark about the future. By the way, I know that your office isn't exactly next to that asshole's office, so maybe you didn't notice that Mrs. Miller filed divorce papers for him today, too. I don't know how he's going to explain to his teenage children that he was caught making love to an employee for the third time, but that's not my problem. You knew you were number 3, right?" Melanie flinched at the revelation. Obviously, she considered herself special, the only one he had ever been with outside of marriage. It looks like this jerk was also a great liar, but on the other hand, he was a lawyer. What did she expect? "Okay, anyway, there are more pages that describe your infidelities as far as Sue could remember. Obviously, she realized that covering your ass could cost her marriage to Jim, so she turned to the prosecution's evidence from a legal point of view. In another way, you can say that she flaunted you and told you everything, all the nights that she lied and said that you were with her. Even the weekend with the girls last November was a ploy to get you and that jerk to sneak into South Padre. By the way, I wouldn't call Sue anytime soon. Jim made it clear that the marriage is over if she talks to you without him. Finally, you have a copy of the civil lawsuit that Diana Miller and I are filing against your law firm. Sleeping with an asshole in our marital bed does not violate any company rules. However, his desk, sofa, and private bathroom are all located in the lawyer's office, so that's where we can conduct the case. Our lawyer believes that we have a chance of success in this case. So, my dear wife, that's why I'm divorcing you. You broke my heart in a way that I don't think I'll ever be able to put into words. I was so upset last week when I had to fly to Sioux Falls because I was glad to have the opportunity to spend time with the only woman I've ever loved, the only woman I've ever wanted to love, my wife, the person I hoped would become the mother of our children. Then, when I was sitting and watching the concert live, hoping to catch a glimpse of my girl singing and dancing with her faithful friend Sue, I almost died when I saw her in the arms of another man, longing for him, accepting his kisses and caresses. My soul was destroyed in an instant. I think I'm a man old enough to accept that I've been treated unfairly, Mel, even disgustingly. People are not perfect. I'm not perfect either. Forgiveness should always be a part of marriage. But you didn't hurt me. You despised me. You deliberately humiliated me in front of everyone. I cannot forgive this, and I will not tolerate it. I'm not going to be married to you, Mel. Not for a second longer than it takes to get a divorce. I'm not going to make it easy for you. I'm going to save as much of my money as possible. Your family and friends will find out what you've done. I will not hide the truth from those who spit in my face with their actions. You're on your own now. I think that's what you probably wanted from the very beginning. That's it, I'm done. Speak calmly if you want to. Mel tried not to cry, but she wasn't very good at it. She was a strong and proud woman, but this man, whom she claimed she loved, whom she had betrayed so deeply, had just ruined her by simply telling the truth. He drew attention to the depth of her terrible actions and their consequences. She wanted to hate him, to blame him for everything. She was desperately trying to avoid the obvious wrong, but there was no escaping the truth about who she was. Did you tell my parents? No, I'll leave it up to you. I talked to my boss and a couple of friends I worked with. Apart from my lawyer and our company's attorney, Michael, I didn't talk to anyone. But let me be clear. If you try to hide the truth or whitewash your actions, I will give them everything, including what is written on the flash drive. I can't tell my parents everything. It will kill them if they hear all this. You can't hate me that much, Henry. Mel, you didn't care about my feelings at all, and the fact that your choice broke my heart. You've been abhorrent to me for at least 6 months, and that's assuming you haven't had any other lovers before. Don't pretend to be a victim. I'll give you a week to tell them, and then I'll call. They'd better know exactly what happened, or they'll get a copy of everything. Henry, I swear there were no others. David was the first and only one. Of course, Mel. And you and Sue were at the concert together last Friday. You and that jerk didn't make love in our marital bed all weekend while you were telling me how much you love me. I guess every time you open your mouth, you're lying. I doubt you even know how to tell the truth in a situation like this. Henry, I didn't want this to happen. I wasn't looking for this. I was caught up in the moment when we won the Dutton case. As soon as we started, I wanted to stop it, but I just didn't do it. I don't know why. Really, Mel? Do you know why? Henry rummaged through the folder until he found the right page. I'm sorry. I should have realized from your conversations how much you wanted to be faithful to me. For example, this quote from 2 days ago when you were both lying in our marital bed after making love. David, I just can't get enough of you. We have to be very careful. If Diana or Henry ever find out, we'll have to break up, and I don't want to stop making love to you. Yes, Mel. It seems that you are so conflicted about your behavior. You don't make love, but lie in the arms of another man in our bed, calling your actions making love, and admitting that you never want to stop. You're completely insane, Mel. Henry's words began to sink in. Mel leaned back in her chair, saying nothing for a minute or two. Finally, she spoke. There's no excuse for me, Henry. I am a grown woman and I have made my choice. I thought I could hide it from you. I thought I could play this game, and if you didn't find out, it would be harmless. I knew David was an asshole. I knew that we would never love each other, even though we said those words. I've never felt for him the way I do for you. But I heartlessly betrayed you in your love for me. Mel paused for a moment to blow her nose and blot her eyes. She looked at Henry across the table and immediately noticed 2 things. His wedding ring was on the table, and she could tell by the look in his eyes that he was lost to her forever. He treated her with the same contempt she treated him with. Her loving husband's safe little world had collapsed. Henry, I do not know what to do or where to go. I can't leave home before the divorce. That would mean admitting that it's over. I guess you're not leaving either. Can we agree to stay here for a while? I need time to think and decide on the next steps. I can't promise that I won't insist on a divorce. Right now, all I want is to be with you forever. I can't imagine life without you. I will live in one of the spare rooms and avoid contacts that go beyond what is necessary. Just like between roommates, I will respect your personal space. Mel, I can't tell you what to do, what to think, or where to go. Erica, my lawyer, told me not to leave the house until the divorce was officially finalized and said that you would feel the same way. You're staying in the master bedroom tonight. I refuse to sleep on the mattress where you made love to that jerk. Tomorrow I'll give it to the Salvation Army, and they'll bring us a new one. This will be my bed. which you will never sleep on. Thank you for understanding, Henry. I would fight to stay if I had to. It's my only legal choice, but I appreciate you meeting me halfway. I'll start moving my stuff tomorrow while you're at work. Mel got up and went over to hug Henry. He quickly moved away from her. Fuck you, Mel. Don't ever try to touch me again, that's all I can do. Being in the same room with you and staying calm. You broke my heart and you destroyed us. I can't comfort you now or ever for doing such a disgusting thing. You made your choice alone, and you're living it alone. I will never be able to completely forget how you flirted with me, Mel, but I will work my hardest to get you out of my life as far as possible, and this journey has already begun. Mel collapsed back into her chair, dropped her head on the table, and sobbed. The epilogue. Mel fought the divorce with all her might. Deep down, she hoped Henry would relent and stay. She had to fight too if she wanted to maintain even a shred of self-respect. Many friends broke off their relationship with her when they heard what she had done to Henry. Mel asked the court to schedule a consultation, showing that she had already undergone therapy, and proving that she had nothing to do with David Miller. However, representing herself was never a good idea. But Mel was worried about attorney fees, so she decided to give it a try. She suspended the process for a while, but never derailed it. Even Mel's parents begged her to let Henry go. They were horrified by her actions and sided with Henry, although they tried to maintain a not very good relationship with their daughter. It took 7 months to get a divorce. The house and savings were divided equally, but Henry did not have to pay alimony. Miracles happen. Melanie left Connor, Sims, and Miller and went to work for a small firm in San Antonio. On the day of her divorce, she was leaving the house and turned around to say goodbye to Henry. He closed the door in her face before she could speak. Now she rarely goes on dates, but usually on Fridays she comes home with a random guy just to make love. Perhaps human communication calms her soul. Perhaps it reminds her that she was a girl who abandoned a good man in a marriage. It turned out that Connor and Sims still have a soul, even if they are lawyers. They kicked Miller out, and a few months later he moved to Houston, where he took a position at a small law firm run by his cousin. Diana robbed him during the divorce, and his children don't talk to him. The lawsuit filed by Henry and Diana was settled out of court in the amount of $250,000 for each of the plaintiffs. Erica was very pleased with the results. David Miller began spending his evenings at the seedy Oilers bar, located in the wrong part of town. One evening, as he was leaving, a man approached him in the parking lot. He looked into Henry Kahn's eyes. There were no security cameras in the area. Henry said, "Hi, asshole," and then punched him in the face. His nose and jaw were broken. Henry bent over him and he spat out blood and a pair of teeth from his mouth. "I wanted you to know who did this to you, David. I wanted you to look into my eyes and understand that this is going to happen. Now, if you report it. There are 12 retired Marines sitting in a bar in downtown Austin right now, and most of them are wearing combat vests with awards. They'll swear I was with them all evening. If by any chance I get arrested and charged with assaulting you, 1 or 2 of them will come back and finish what I started. Do you understand, you piece of shit?" Charges were never filed. About a year after the divorce, Henry was leaving a cafe in downtown Austin when he looked up and saw a beautiful woman about his age coming inside. He held the door open for her when she came in. "Thank you, good sir," she said. "It's nice to see that some cowboys still have good manners." "You're welcome, ma'am," Henry replied and headed for his car. He was about to leave when he thought to himself, "What the hell?" and turned around, heading back to the cafe. She was sitting facing the door and immediately looked up when he returned. He walked right up to her table, held out his hand and said, "I'm sorry, but I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Henry." She shook his hand in greeting. "Nice to meet you, Henry. I'm Lori. Why don't you pull up a chair? And